I see God in healing bones, in the sanctuary of our homes. And I see God in the wilderness, in our magnetism to recklessness. Black or white or vivid color, after a while it all runs together. Stained glass means nothing without light. And I see God in our damaged good, but you see God in ways I wish I could. Yeah, you see God in ways that I wish I could. Without assurance, without insurance, you believe. Without condition or the promise of heaven, you see the Holy Ghost in broad daylight. I see the reflection in your eyes. I see the reflection in your eyes. I see the reflection in your eyes. Young, I was fickle, you were so strong. I remember trees as they called your name. Mother told me, listen up close, there's a story they have composed. Look how their clapping arms are swaying high.
Good morning. Welcome to Watershed. We're so glad that you're here, whether you're joining us here in person or maybe outside, braving some of the heat and humidity. Or maybe you are watching from the beach. Maybe you are hanging out, watching us on Facebook or YouTube. We're glad that you're here, however you're joining. But if you are here in person, we want to invite you to stand as we begin this morning by singing together.
Higher than the mountains that I face, stronger than the power of the grave, constant in the trial and the change. One thing remains, one thing remains. Higher than the mountains that I one thing remains.
Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love.
'Cause on and on and on and on it goes, and overwhelms and satisfies my soul. I never ever have to be afraid. There's one thing remains. One thing remains. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. In death, in life, I'm confident and covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid. There's nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. In death, in life, I'm confident and covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid. There's nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. Oh, and your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. And your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. And higher than the mountains that I face, stronger than the power of the grave, constant in the trial and the change. One thing remains. One thing remains.
Thank you so much for singing with us this morning. We'll give you an opportunity to greet the people around you. So maybe it's not a high five quite yet, but smile, maybe a wave, say good morning, and then we'll continue singing together.
was never angry. God was not against me. God was never far away. God's not disappointed. God's not keeping score, and God's not judging my mistakes. God is light. God is love. Do not fear, for God's with us. God is good. God is grace. God will never hide her face. 'Cause God is. God is. God was never angry. God was not against me. God was never far away. God's not disappointed. God's not keeping score, and God's not judging my mistakes. God is light. God is love. Do not fear, for God's with us. God is good. God is grace. God will never hide her face. 'Cause God is. God is. 'Cause God is. Yes, God is. God is light. God is love. Do not fear, for God's with us. God is good. God is grace. God will never hide her face. God is light. God is love. Do not fear, for God's with us. God is good. God is grace. God will never hide her face. I see so clearly now. God is in the mystery. God is always with me. I was lost, now I'm found. Everything I once thought, guided by the love. I see so clearly now. God is in the mystery. God is always with me. I was lost, now I'm found. Everything I once thought, guided by the love. God is. God is. God is. God was never angry. God was not against me. God was never far away.
Thank you for singing with us. You can be seated.
goodness, look who it is.
Yeah.
Good evening, right? It's evening there.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's evening.
So, Thunglao, where are you calling in from or zooming in from?
I am zooming in from Kolkata, Internet.
So you're in Calcutta, and then Ungam is in Guwahati. Ungam, thank you for joining us for a few moments. I'd like you to introduce yourselves. Tell us how old you are and what year in school you are. Ungam, you don't have to share your school year or your age if you don't want to.
Yeah.
So who would like to go first?
Hello, Uncle Matt. Good evening, and my name is Priscilla Halkit, and I'm class 10, and I'm 15 years old.
15 years old. Wow. Priscilla, can you tell me one thing that you enjoy doing just for fun?
Painting.
Painting? You like to paint? Sometimes I see paintings on your walls when I'm talking to your dad. Are those your paintings?
Yes.
Are they?
Yes.
They're very lovely. All right, who's next? Who's next? John, jump in there, man.
Hello, my name is John. I am the youngest. I am going to be 12, and I'm class 6.
Class 6. What is your favorite class?
SST, history.
History. Awesome. And what's the thing that you enjoy to do for fun?
Gardening.
Gardening. All right. I think your mom likes to garden too, doesn't she? Do you guys garden together sometimes?
We did that in the campus.
Yeah. When I was a kid growing up in my home state of Kentucky, we had a garden also, and I enjoyed gardening too. So I like that. All right, I think we're down to Faith, aren't we? Faith, you back there in the back? Come on up here and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Faith, and I'm in 9th grade, and my age is
13. So you're the middle child. What is your favorite subject in school, and then what's something that you enjoy doing?
English, I think.
Mm-hmm. And what do you enjoy? What do you do for fun?
I watch porn.
You watched phone? You could be an American kid, let me tell you. Well, thank you guys. Ungam, I know you enjoy gardening also, right?
Yes, Uncle Matt.
What are some of the things that you are growing right now?
Pumpkin.
Pumpkins, okay.
Yeah, and then lettuce finger, and then beans.
Beans, lettuce, okay.
King chili.
Chili.
Yeah.
Chili. These are all things that you cook with as well, I'm assuming. You cook with these?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that you have some relationships, or you have a relationship with one of our Watershed folks, Christy. Christy's going to be watching this. Is there anything you'd like to say to Christy?
I'm much better now.
Yeah.
So
She's
thank
kind of.
you.
Yeah. I just wanted our community to hear your voices and to see you. I spend a lot of time talking with Thunglao, and our community has gotten to know him, but I at least wanted them to hear your voice, to let you know that our community loves you, we support you, and you have a beautiful family, Unglam. And Thunglao, he talks about you like you are the backbone of the family, that you hold everything together. Is that yeah, I think that's like yes, for sure. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm gonna spend some time talking with Thunglao this morning, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Okay?
Oh, thank you.
children that look just like his kids. And so to see Tung Lao grow up in that system, and in those days he was translating for us as we would bring in these Americans, and then we work with some of the local communities there. And it's just amazing to watch what he is doing and the work that he's doing. And so when we invest in a young man like Tung Lao, it's not like we just heard about him last week and we thought, well, this would be meaningful. This is a guy that's been doing really quality, great work for decades. And we have a relationship with him, and we have had that for decades. And so thank you for what you guys do in terms of investing in them. And Tung Lao, I know he's watching right now, and it is really good to have you with us this morning and your family. We love you guys. So we've got a few things for you in terms of how our weeks look. And part of what we've attempted to try to figure out is, what does it mean sort of re-engaging reality during this, you hope, a post-COVID reality, right? Or at least more of that. And it's still out there, but what's it mean to sort of re-engage life these days? And so we've been doing the yoga experience in here for a minute now, and that's been incredibly significant for those of you who take that very seriously. And so if you're interested in jumping in on the 11th, every Monday at 7 p.m., here in the auditorium, we move some chairs, kind of shut things down, and make it a space that's really meaningful for you. So if you're interested, love to have you sign up. It's really important that you sign up so we can prepare and plan ahead, so feel free to hit that QR code there as well. We also are offering something a little bit different. We've not hosted here, at least yet, and I'm looking forward to doing it, and hopefully more often. So our very own Kim Honeycutt is a director of what she calls ICU Talks. And July 19th, we'll be having our first one here in the space. And so I went to their website, and I know what it is, but I kind of wanted to sort of hear their words to what ICU Talks is. And it's about bringing speakers together who each share about their faith walk, but not the gentle, smooth path. Our speakers will share about their pain, their struggles, and ultimate redemption. So it's incredibly meaningful, and would love to have you be a part of that evening. It's free. Our very own Joe Sweeney, who some of you might know, is actually speaking into that space and sharing his story. And so if you want to hear stories of people who have navigated painful parts of reality and life, and there's a sense of real meaningful hope at the end of that, you definitely want to show up and be a part of that. And then lastly, preface. This is something that Matt and I get to do, and we've enjoyed this thoroughly. This is another very meaningful experience. We get to sit in this room with 15 or 20 or maybe 25 of many of you who are brand new to this community, and you're asking some really significant questions about your faith and what it means to re-engage the church again. And if you are interested in saying, you know what, I'm looking for other folks who are in the same place I am in, I'm relatively new here, I'd like to jump in and meet other people who are relatively new as well, highly recommend that. It's only for 4 nights, and it's really accessible. I promise you will walk away having an experience that was very significant. And so if you're interested in jumping in with us on that, please do so. July 13th is when it begins, and we'd like to have a sense of who's going to be there. It's important, so you can please sign up using that QR code as well. The kinds of work we do here, and we always end these announcements with this part of it, right? The kind of work we do here is significant on so many different fronts. If you sit in preface, it probably reveals some of the best work we get to do here, because so many of you are showing up. The church has been painful for you. Maybe you've given up on faith in general. Maybe you've given up on the idea of God as an entity, as an essence. And you're saying, you know what? What's it mean to reimagine faith? What's it mean to meet other people who are on that same journey, but actually finding something incredibly redemptive on the other side? And so if that's you, if that's your story, we'd love to have you be a part of Preface. But again, that kind of work that we do, seeing that happen through so many different lives here is very meaningful, let alone what we get to do overseas and the kind of work we get to do here locally, and the kinds of experiences we offer you in your kids' space or your student space. And so if you're interested in being a part of what we do here, we invite you to invest. It's very important that we take that seriously. So one of our approaches has been, can we see 5 new households? So it would be an individual or family that says, you know what, I'm in once a month for a minimum of around $100 or so. And that allows us then to be able to plan and strategize going forward. So if you have any questions about how to give or what giving looks like here, of course, there's the QR code on the screen. But I would be glad to talk to you about any of the details regarding our resources, our budgets, how we spend money, what we do with it. We're very vulnerable in that way. And so if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. I'll be in the back afterwards and look forward to talking to you. Thanks.
I want to invite you to stand back up. We're going to hear more from Tung Lao today. And there's a song that we've been doing for probably a few years now, that kind of reframes poetically the Beatitudes. So often when we read Scripture or we engage in it, we feel like it's about us. We feel like it's for us, and in many ways, in some ways it is. But there's these places where Scripture kind of flips on its head, and it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." And so much of our lives are ourselves trying to push maybe out of those spaces. And so we're going to sing a song that we've done before, and I want to invite you to sing, but maybe think of this as a reminder of what the kingdom of God is and who it's for and how it's found. Blessed are the ones who do not bury all the broken pieces of their heart. And blessed are the tears of all the weary, pouring like a sky of falling stars. Blessed are the wounded ones in mourning, brave enough to show the Lord their scars. And blessed are the hurts that are not hidden, open to the healing touch of God. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him.
To walk in kindness, even in the face of great abuse. Blessed are the deeds that go unnoticed, serving with unguarded gratitude. Blessed are the ones who fight for justice, longing for the coming day of peace. Blessed is the soul that thirsts for righteousness, welcoming the last that lost the least. The kingdom is yours. Still the strength to love their enemies. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. Though they fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours.
singing. You can be seated.
So, Dunklau, I know for some folks who've been here for a while, there's some familiarity around who you are, but there's a lot of brand new folks, especially over the last, 8 to 12 months. Can you just kind of familiarize our community with who you are? How did you end up to where you are today?
Yes. My name is Tanglal Haukip, and I was born in a small village in Manipur, northeast India. And a place that where I was born, there is constant war between tribes. And then, there was a war for land, resources, and rights. And my family, we were 11 children. My parents were cultivator, and then they don't have much. We are very poor. In one of the tribal war, we lost our house, our belonging, everything that we know, we lost. About thousands of people were killed, hundreds of houses were burned. One of them is our house. So we become a refugee, and we were very poor. We land up in the street. Then we heard about a children's home where children are taken care. So me and my 4 siblings, 5 of us together, we landed in that place. In Kota, Rajasthan, which is in the West, India. And that is a place that where I met Uncle Matt and Auntie Donna and Sister Terrence and Brother Scott. They came as a team to help us and then to be with us. And that was a kind of love, acceptance. Before that, we have not seen football, soccer, or kind of playing. But they came and played with us, spent time with us, tell us a Bible story. And that was a wonderful time that we met together. And as I was there, I was selected as a translator for them. I keep asking a lot of Bible questions to them and a lot of things about the belief and about God. And I'm still asking in this friendship. Yeah. And
you and I both, we're still asking a lot of questions together, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How old were you when you arrived at the children's home?
Maybe early teenage, and maybe about 12, 13. Yeah.
So you got your education from the Bible Institute, and then what happened next?
As I was studying there, then I met a beautiful girl, and which later on become my wife. That is Angam. But she belongs to my enemy tribes in Manipur, because the tribe that keep fighting with each other, burning each other's houses and killing each other. So my wife happened to be in my tribe's enemy. So we approached our parents, and in both sides, they were not agree. So they make us wait to negotiate for 7 years. So I have been waiting for that with a great difficulty, but the Lord was working in her side, in our side, and then finally we got married. And then we came to Guwahati, a place called Guwahati in the northeast. one of the central in the Northeast, one of the largest city in the Northeast, where we started the church in 2007. And we started in one of the rented house that we have taken. So with great difficulties in that small house, we begin this church. And I've been pastoring for the last about 14, 15 years there. And we are serving the Lord. Now the Lord blessed us with another 2 more churches, sister churches, which I planted. And now we are in 3 communities, 3 churches. And I am the senior pastor of all those churches.
Where did you and Angam meet? Did you meet at the Bible Institute, or how did that happen?
Yes, in the Bible Institute and in the Bible College.
So she had come from Manipur, but a different region because it was a different tribe. And you fell in love, and you had to wait 7 years to get married. Is that correct?
Yes,
and
exactly.
And that was just to honor your family's wishes, or to work through the difficulty of being in rival tribes? Is that like, why the 7-year period?
The thing is that their tribes burn our houses, their tribes kill our people, and they say the same thing. My tribes do the same thing to them. And that is one of the reasons that though they are Christian, we are Christian as well, but still then they were not willing to accept each other. But after we got married, I think that is the plan of the Lord, that because of our marriage, their village and our village become friends. Now our people from our village can go to their village. Nobody can harm them because of us. Their people from their village come to our village, which is a big risk. But because of our marriage, then they are considered as our guests. So this kind of a peace and reconciliation come between 2 villages, and it become bigger and bigger. And in few stories that I have told earlier, that how we become a reconciliation and a peace when people were kidnapped, they were about to kill, but because of my wife talking to my brothers, to the tribe leaders, and then we rescue 9 of them.
Oh my goodness. Are you familiar with the story of Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah, we heard, but not the details about it very much, but we heard about now.
Well, it's the story of 2 people who fall in love from 2 different kingdoms that hate each other. And, it's a tragedy because in the end, the 2 lovers or the 2 people end up taking their own life, and then the tribes come together. Thank God that that's not how this story ends up, right? Like,
and we are still alive.
There's a better way to do that, right?
Yeah, a better way to do that. Shakespeare will have to write a better love story.
Shakespeare doesn't have anything over you. I'll just say that.
Well, good morning. My name is Matt, and I'm also one of the pastors here, obviously. And for the record, Thung Lao is watching live this morning on Facebook from India. He and his family. Could we just give him a round of applause as a way of welcoming him into this space? We are in week 3 of this series, where we're trying to introduce and become more aware of what these justice partnerships represent. And you've already had a chance to meet Thung Lao, his family, Angam, their 3 kids, Priscilla, John, and Faith. And this morning's a little unique, for obvious reasons at one level, because Thung Lao can't physically join us here because of being an international partner. But it's also unique in that the way that you're going to hear about this is through some recorded conversations between he and I, and how this partnership has been mutually impactful to one another. And I want to get down into the sort of the weeds of that. And the way I want to kind of get there is actually to circle back to this particular photo. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, where or when have fanny packs ever been a thing? I just want to go ahead and name that reality. And I'd like to tell you that in 1998 in India, they were all the rage. but that would be violating some sense of authenticity or transparency. And, I've shown this photograph before, and I don't know what's worse, like the fact that I'm wearing a fanny pack or that I'm wearing it with like swag. It's like unapologetic. Every picture from India seems to have this, and I'm going to have hopefully great-grandchildren someday that will be like, Grandpa was so awesome, but there's this thing that keeps popping up in some photos. What's up with the fanny pack? So, but this photograph is meaningful. It marks something significant that I think is important to point to, not just in our story with Thuncloud, but our stories with all of these partnerships. And that is that relationship really is core in how we're trying to move through how we align ourselves or come alongside of other organizations or people. In the first weekend, you heard from activist and spiritual director Tommy Allgood, whose emerging work around curating radical communities it's not just impacting Watershed, but it's also impacting other communities and organizations beyond Watershed in the work that he does. And he's been a part of us for nearly a decade. Launchpad that you heard from last weekend equips and empowers new and existing church leaders to cultivate more just, generous, affirming, and inclusive faith communities like Watershed. But Launchpad is born really out of relationship, or our partnership is born out of a relationship that started a little over 4 years ago and has been evolving. It really started in Denver, Colorado, when myself and Scott and David Roberts attended a roundtable discussion in the city of Denver with about 30 or 40 church organizers, church leaders. We had no idea that there were other churches out there that were similar to our church here at Watershed, or who were interested in helping create these environments or helping other pastors or community of faiths have transitions into being more inclusive, more open, more affirming. But this was the first time that we realized something was out there like us, and being able to sit around the table with Jen Fisher and Aaron Bailey and really getting to know them is those were the early seeds of relationship that is now starting to blossom. And then next weekend, Bishop Tanya Rawls is going to be here in the house, not only just to preach, but to give context to the work that she does across the spectrum of justice, and hear about how social justice communities and organizations that she's launched, that she's actually started and now leads. We're going to be able to hear about that. But we were introduced to Bishop Rawls 3 years ago in the midst of the pandemic and so much social unrest that was not just nationally here in the United States, but also in Charlotte. And our relationship with her was within the context of her helping us find language and vision for how communities of faith can be supportive in partnerships within the larger work of justice, the larger work of Jesus in our city. And this might be worth mentioning too. And really early on, when our two families moved here back in 2005, if it weren't for the collaboration in the partnership and the work of just a handful of churches who recognized what we were trying to do and said, we want to come alongside of you with our resources, with mentoring, with coaching, with networking, with interning. Like, that was a game changer for us. I don't know that we would be here if there hadn't been some sort of group of churches at that stage of the game for us that met us where we were and helped us move into more stability. And part of what we get excited about in all of these partnerships is now, as a more established, as a more mature community, a body of Christ, there's an opportunity as a church to respond to the world, to respond to other work in the city and other, in some instances, fledgling work, that we get to be supportive and also benefit in terms of who we are as we struggle together, loving as though a different world is possible. Which brings me back to Thuncloud. I'd like to offer a little more context, and Scott nodded to this earlier. This relationship is long and it runs deep. It has very deep currents. Thuncloud mentioned how in Bible college in 1998 was the year he became a translator. Between 98 and 2000, over the course of about 13 months, over those 2 years, our two families, along with several other Americans, spent time at this children's home where Thung Clau originally lived, and then also worked in conjunction with this Bible college where he attended. And we were a bunch of really ignorant, evangelical, conservative Christians kind of gallivanting around his country, convinced we were saving the world, convinced we were saving people from hell, convinced we had some sort of special insight from God on just about everything, to be transparent. Almost like I want to throw up in my mouth hearing myself say that. And there's been a lot of work that has gone into in this community of disentangling ourselves from past expressions that at times were incredibly beautiful and generous, and then also really misguided and harmful. And I know for some of you, like, part of why you're in this space is because either you've had some experience of being harmed by some of these misguided notions, or maybe you feel like maybe you've even been complicit. But to be more specific, when we were there, and this still exists today, there were these cultural, social, and political dynamics that really made it dangerous and difficult to even call yourself, quote, Christian in India. It's still true today, even after 2 decades. And at age 19, Thung Clau, along with 2 or 3 other men, boys, women, girls, they were put in charge of escorting us and translating for our group within this context, accompanying our team as we moved from one place to another in that country. And it meant often that it kind of put a spotlight for him to be in a dangerous situation. I mean, bussing around a bunch of folks who are white in a country where you stand out like a sore thumb, like that's nothing to shake a stick at. That was really dangerous for him. And it was dangerous for us. And on more than one occasion, there were these experiences or situations where he literally rescued us from great harm, often saved our life. And so it didn't take us long to realize that we were entrusting him with our lives. And so in 2007, when he called and he said, I want to start a church, I mean, we couldn't say yes fast enough. We want to be a part of this. We want to be in partnership and walk alongside of you. And again, that's the relational context and the reality that I think is important to name, because within it is anchored all of these other things. It's anchored to supporting him to launch a spiritual community, other churches. It anchors us to the after school and tutoring and mentoring programs for kids that his church started several years leading up to the pandemic for his undocumented Muslim neighbors that he serves. It anchors us to the food and the blankets that we partnered with him in providing to these same families in a raging pandemic. It anchors us in the project this most recent Christmas of providing air tanks to sick and dying folks in Manipur, people from his own village. These are the sort of tangible ways that this partnership has existed between us. But there's also this other dynamic that we didn't think was going to happen, or didn't know that would happen, that sort of evolved over the last several years, that I think is sort of like this. It's worth naming. It's worth trying to explain or shine a light on. It's no secret that in 2005 when Watershed started, we were dramatically a different community than we are today. Some of you were around during that time, and so you understand the drastic difference. There have been like these notable evolutionary shifts away from ideas or behaviors or ways of showing up or creating space that we started to realize are actually antithetical to the world that Jesus was trying to paint for his followers, his disciples, the people in his day and age. And we started to shift away from those sort of ways, and then started to embrace or envision ways that do actually align with the world that Jesus was pointing to. And what's true is that every time there would be like these cliques, it felt like there was a death process that we were going through as a community. as we were waiting and hoping for some sort of resurrection. We call that process in shorthand reclamation, where there was a lot being reclaimed during those days. But in the earliest stages of it, there was nobody to talk to. Like, there was no other church, there was no other community of leaders. And I remember our staff would sit around a table, and Scott and I would often find ourselves in conversations in coffee shops and would just like lament and say, just what if? Like, what if there was just somebody, or if only there was somebody that we could talk to, if only there was someone who could hold this tension with us, if only there was a voice or a community of people that would allow us to say the thing out loud that like is going on inside of ourselves, or the things that we say in private. If only there was a person or group of people that would like host our disruption, our curiosity, our questions, so that at least we knew we weren't alone. If only there was someone like that. If only.
You've shown up in spaces like Reclamation, Preface. You and I have been talking for 2 years. Can you talk about the impact of those conversations?
Yes. Yeah, Uncle Matt. First of all, it was really a great joy to be able to, kind of feel like I am inside the Watershed, which I'm really longing for, excited about. And then I'm so happy, so glad I learned a lot. First, I will tell about the challenges. Because since this happened in the evening in US, and which is midnight for me here in India, so I have to get up at about 3:30 in the morning in order to get prepared for 4 o'clock, because it's 4 o'clock in the morning. So I start kind of seeing friends and people who have joined Watershed scholars, like which I would have never met in life, like Peter Rollins. And then though the Irish or Scottish language was a little bit difficult to understand it, but still then it was good. And also going through Rob Bell's kind of books on the trampoline and the brick wall, Christianity and things like that. And one more thing that which interests me very much is that it was very safe place to ask questions. I come from kind of like a nation, I live in a nation that where you don't ask questions. You don't ask questions too much to the teacher, too much to the, especially pastors, or especially in matter of faith. We don't question, we just believe whatever passed down. But sometimes it doesn't make sense, because the Bible written in different contexts in 2,000-3,000 years ago, and then when it is not relevant, we just say okay, and then we just believe. But here, this is totally different scenario and context where it's safe to ask a question. I do not know whether I annoyed Uncle Matt, Scott, or Pastor David by asking a lot of questions, because what I have seen is that suffering, and it was at the time of pandemic especially, where in you turn your left and right, that you see that people are dying because lack of oxygen and lack of hospitality and hospital, and lack of medicine, lack of vaccines, and poverty everywhere, and lockdowns, and all those things. So I asked a lot of questions that where is God when these innocent people are suffering, not in a matter of hundreds of thousands, but it's in a matter of millions, and kind of like when all over the world. It was a place that where I start kind of my thinking kind of evolved, or a kind of growing, and my understanding was kind of enlightened, and then things like that. I used to believe that kind of God is a white man, and he is not brown, where I have a brown skin, but God is white. And then I used to believe that God is a male, because that's what, pass it down to us. And I used to believe that God is very angry if you are not behave well. And that's how I teach my children, my church. But through this place that I learn about God, then that hyper being, super being, and then ground reality. And with all those involvement, all those asking questions and answers, and through those preface and reclamations, then I start reasonizing what I believe, and I start ask a question. And I didn't get some of the answers, but still I enjoy the journey.
All right, so we're gonna try to shoot from the hip. Do you know what that means?
No. Yeah. Yeah.
We are going to freestyle it. Do you know what that means?
Okay.
Yeah, you understand that? Okay, shoot from the hip, freestyle. We're going to wing it. All right, here just a little bit. Does that make sense? All right.
Not very much, but
I think people don't understand me a lot of the times, and you just tell me I don't understand you, and that's really helpful, because most people just I have a full dose of reality when I'm with you. All right, so I'm just curious, like, is there something that you have changed your view on over the last couple of years because of the way that Watershed has engaged in the conversation with you, or you've engaged in the conversation with us?
Uncle Matt, a lot. I do not know whether I would be able to number them all, but being a pastor in India is Uncle Matt, kind of like you were sometime a pastor, you are sometime a driver, you are sometime a father, you are sometime, everyone depends on you. People who are kicked out from their homes because of their faith, they depend on you. And then they have a lot of questions to you. And then you are the one, they look us that we have every answers. But on the other hand, deep down, we do not have the answers. we ourselves are struggling. And then we cannot say to the church that I don't have the answers. And I cannot say to the church that I'm also still looking for the answers. I think I have asked you this more than 2 times about this Holy Communion, where we are putting people who are not baptized not to take part in that. And without realizing, I have been doing this for the last 10, 15 years, that where believer, a wife or husband, they will take part in that Holy Communion. And husband or wife who is not a believer, they will not take part in that. Now, without realizing, after talking with you, my eyes were open to see that I am discriminating, or I am creating a wall between this husband and wife. One is a believer, another is a non-believer, because of that elements, that wafer and a kind of a wine and that cup. So now we don't have the answer so far how to do it, but still it was a kind of a moment that sparked that we start thinking about it, where how we accommodate, how we accommodations, and these things are new terms, that how we can be inclusive in how we present the love of Christ in the church.
I think one of the reasons we resonate with each other so much is we are tortured by the idea that somebody would be left out. That just doesn't feel like good news.
The gospel that which is preached in my country even today is that hell is kind of the central of the message, that we scare people. We scare people, if you don't believe in Jesus, you will go to be burned in the hellfire. So I was just holding that very, very firmly, very strongly. But after talking with you and getting a very good explanations about where the terms and terminologies about Gehenna, where a literal place in Jesus' times, that where Jesus was talking about, and I think even you mentioned one time, so we talk about that where it's how about the systems, and then that which is kind of oppressing people, which is kind of like in my country, it's a casteism, that where the high caste dominates. Like then I am not even a low caste, a high caste, a low caste, and then no caste. So I become from a tribal community where I have no caste. No caste means even not counting at all. Now I pastor a church that where there are high caste, there are middle caste, there are low caste people, and I am a person who don't have even a caste, and I am a pastor. Now, again, very close to what we were asking in the first questions, like a lot of challenges that I have gone through that was in my mind, but after talking with you, then I realized that that is the systems that which is evil that need to be thrown to hellfire. So that was the kind of a turning moment. I said that, I got a new gospel. I got a new thing now. And now, I'm born again.
So you're starting to see, like, this is a fascinating, beautiful relationship that exists between our community that's spanned a decade and a half between us and Thung Clau. And I want to just spend this last 2 or 3 minutes connecting a couple of dots, and then also inviting us into something as a community that we've been talking about for the last several weeks. I think part of what makes this partnership so profound and so unique is that, first of all, it models the sort of community that we long to create, like the relationship that actually exists as Thung Clau is now. I mean, Thung Clau considers himself sort of a part of this community, and we've started to consider that in a very real way over the last 4 years. But this partnership also is planting seeds in a part of the world where hopefully there's more hopeful, safe spaces that have a chance to emerge and grow. And it's fighting uphill against forces and realities that are so much heavier than even what we're working uphill against here in our country, which sounds staggering, doesn't it? That there's actually a place that like shares the same difficulty of escaping gravity with even more energy. It also supports and stands in solidarity with a family and within communities who sit at the most marginalized places on this planet. I mean, you heard him describing, I don't even count in the system where there is actually a lowest group. I'm so disregarded, and the people that I work with, my Muslim brothers and sisters, are right there. You want to know why he's able to connect to those people? It's because he knows what it's like to walk that path. And so this partnership, every partnership we have is so beautiful. But it was about 8 weeks ago that I came before our community, that our staff had sat with the idea of saying, look, this family has for 15 years bounced from one housing situation to another. They've been at the mercy of landlords, evictions, poor living conditions. I mean, you saw the imagery of these 3 beautiful kids in this what amounts to a 2-room barn with a tin roof and tin walls in 100+ degree weather. They need to be safe. They need to have stability because of the work that they're doing, and allowing them to be able to at least have their feet underneath of them. And you understand, like, the association with property and the system they're in. Part of why you're in the lowest caste is because you don't own property. And so to be able to like thumb our nose at that system alongside of him, and to be able to come in and say, look, we're going to walk alongside you in this way, shape, and size, is a form of resistance. And so I want to invite you. It takes $17,000 for this family to have a home, to buy property, to have bedrooms, electricity, internet, beds, walls, privacy, restrooms, air conditioning. $17,000 for that. And last weekend I stood up and said, there's a family here at Watershed who has said, look, we will match dollar for dollar to the finish line of this project. I said that last weekend. At that time, only about $1,200 had been given. Within a matter of a couple of hours, that number jumped to about $5,200. And so let me kind of spell it out for you. Right now, we've got about almost $5,600 after matching. That's a total of about $11,000. All we need is just under $3,000 more given dollars, and we land it. And Thunklau, I know you're watching. I checked in. You're bantering with our online community this morning. I want you to know this is going to happen. We've got one more week till this series is over. I would love to be able to stand up next weekend, or someone from Watershed stand up and say, well done, we finished the task. But if you're willing to be a part of this morning, if you're willing to take an honest inventory of areas that maybe you could scale back and go, all right, for the next week or this morning or the next month or next year, I'm going to set this thing aside that I wanted or thought I needed because this family needs my help. There's a QR code that you can access that with. I want to give you a few moments to just kind of reflect. God, thank you for creating relationships. I had no idea, we had no idea 2.5 decades ago that this 19-year-old kid would have such an impact, not just in this world, but with our community. You know what? That's not true. I remember Scott and I often we would say this kid is special. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. God, thank you for being a community that not only sits with so much of what is happening in the world, so much of what is happening in our own lives, and ask really hard, beautiful questions about what it means to be more human, what it means to join others in the effort, in the ambition of creating a different world. Thank you, God, that we get to do this together. And thank you, God, in advance for the way that you will inspire and invite this community to make a difference, not just today, but in our weeks and months and years ahead. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
You'll find me with the broken and the weak, in the spaces in between. You'll hear my voice cry out with those who weep, only if you're listening. Whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me. You'll find me with the ones without a voice, the forgotten and ignored. My blessing is on those who love the poor. Will you open up the door? Whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me.
Thank you, Watershed. Because of our partnership, my church could engage with people who otherwise would never heard or taste God's love and care, the marginalized, oppressed, and immigrants who lived unhoused, what is referred to in my country as a slum. You have shown your generosity to my family by taking pain to support us for a house, a shelter, and a place which my wife and kids can call our home. A stable place where they can learn and grow amidst the unstable political and climate environment that continue to traumatize my country. Lastly, we are eternally grateful Watershed has provided relationship, family, friends, mentoring, a community in you. I can confidently preach now and teach, witness, and serve throughout my life, knowing that you are beside me always. I look forward to a future ways we can partner together. As a mustard seed of hope in a broken world, a big, big hug from me and my family. Love you all.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, He is among us, He is among us. Hallelujah, hallelujah, He is among us, He is among us. Hallelujah, hallelujah, He is among us, He is among us. Hallelujah, hallelujah, He is among us, He is among us. And whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me. And whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thung Lao, thank you for joining us online. I hope you have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next week.